The third Saturday in October is upon us, and that means it's Bama week for the Vols. The playoff picture, Heisman talk, and the state of this rivalry post Nick Saban are all topics on the table, and we're here to discuss them. Welcome to the Volunteer State. I'm Tennessee beat writer Adam Sparks, along with John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel. We've got plenty to talk about. On this episode, we're going to look forward to Tennessee's upcoming trip to Tuscaloosa and also revise our record predictions now that we're at the midseason point for the Vols. But before that, I want to look backward to some hot topics from the Arkansas game because they're relevant in this upcoming Alabama game. And before I do that, just a programming note. We did not do a podcast last week. A lot of you listeners would have noticed that. I had just full disclosure, I had a death in the family. My grandmother passed away. So I had to spend a couple days in the middle of the work week in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and so we are not able to do a pod. We've told you guys we would do a pod episode during the season once a week. We didn't have one last week, and that was the reason why. So we're back at it now weekly, and boy, was it a week. John, I saw you had a column where you answered some concerns coming out of the Arkansas game of Tennessee fans. I had an enormous mailbag with some of the same complaints, concerns, and so I wanted to hit a few of these because, like I said, they are relevant to the Alabama game, and some of these have been some hot topics for the last few weeks in Tennessee season. John, number one, officiating. I'm going to let you take this one because I know you love to talk about officials and bad call. Nothing you like more than just to digest an obviously bad call. So, John, officiating is the hot topic. I got a number of emails about this. I know you did too. The question is it as bad as it seems? And, John, why are you not making the SEC fix this? John, go ahead.
Yeah, I know you're being facetious because I usually ignore officiating. To me, officiating errors are just part of the game. Coaches aren't perfect, players aren't perfect, neither are the officials. What bothers me most is when you go to the video review and they make the wrong call from that.
Yeah.
That's the one that gets me. Just give me a break. Just get it right. For example, in the Auburn game against Georgia, uh, running back goes over the top. Did he break the plane? Maybe, maybe not. Was he in or out? Not in.
Quarterback Jackson Arnold. Yeah, the quarterback. You said
And so,
running back.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, so the ball comes loose, and then a Georgia player sees that on the ground, scoops it up, runs for a touchdown. Well, when I'm watching that, I'm thinking, well, if he crossed the plane, it's a touchdown. But if he didn't cross the plane, then it's a touchdown for Georgia because that's a loose ball and he picked it up and ran with it.
It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was almost, and this is what I have a problem with in officiating is indecisiveness and perhaps knowing that the review is coming. Well, I don't know what to do here. We'll just split the difference. I mean, that's kind of what I thought happened. If you say he didn't break the plane, it's a touchdown. So I see a lot of stuff. Another thing, and we've seen it a couple of times, I thought Chris Brazell got away with a offensive interference call against Georgia. It wasn't called. It was a big play for Tennessee. Then in the, what game was it? The Mississippi State game, he got called for offensive interference. I didn't think that was a pass interference. However, those are instantaneous, subjective, spur of the moment calls. It's really hard to tell always on that call. So, one of the things, and I got somebody ask me about this, Josh Heupel doesn't get the respect that some coaches do. Now,
namely Kirby Smart. Is that
mainly Kirby Smart? And then I thought, well, I don't know about that. I mean, I guess they're parlaying it with, but if Kirby got that much respect, he would have got a touchdown in that Auburn game. I think Yeah, he's got credibility. He's considered the number one coach of the nation, just as with those two national titles, just as Nick Saban was. Josh Heupel, nah, he's a good coach and he's won a bunch of games, but he doesn't have that cachet that those guys did. I don't know. I mean, when I watch a game, I just don't notice Tennessee getting abused by the officiating. I know it was one sided in that game, but there weren't calls that stuck out to me.
So there's a number of things I want to react to there. Let me back up. The Auburn Georgia game. Yeah, it was Jackson Arnold scored. That should have been on review. They should have looked at it and said, he broke the plane. He scored. Yeah, the compromise of we're not going to do it either way. Compromise makes nobody happy.
No.
That's why makeup calls never feel like makeup calls because, well, you can't make up for what happened. It's what happened, and that's why we're mad. So compromise doesn't fix anything. They should have that should have been a touchdown. I know it's not a Tennessee game, but that should have been a touchdown. Your point about whether or not Josh Heupel gets respect, or the point of some readers. Yeah, I mean he doesn't get the respect that Kirby Smart does, but nobody does really, at least in the SEC, because what other coach could convince officials, yeah, you saw me call timeout. I made the hand motion. I said timeout, but I didn't really. You didn't see that, and you didn't hear that. Jedi mind trick. That did not happen. Josh Heupel can't make that happen, but nobody else in the SEC can. I will agree that it seems to be that Kirby Smart is on a different plane there. But I think it's two tiers. I think it was Kirby and Nick Saban and everybody else. I think it's probably just Kirby and everybody else now. I hear a criticism from readers, from Tennessee fans, that Josh Heupel does not complain enough, and that's why he didn't get the calls. I I I would guess that fans that make that complaint are watching on TV and not live in the stadium, because it is a different perspective. On TV, you see him complaining some. If you're in the stadium, if you're in the press box and you're seeing it, I mean, he is chirping at the officials. He's throwing his hands up in the air. He's pumping his fist. He's yelling. He's on the officials quite a bit. He has a very affable personality, but on the sideline, and if you can read lips, you would believe that he gives them a pretty good earful. In that game specifically, now a lot of this complaints come out of the Auburn Georgia game, but complaints from Tennessee especially comes out of the fact that there was a large discrepancy in the number of penalties between Tennessee and Arkansas. There was a discrepancy. I thought there was too much of a discrepancy. I mean, at the end of, with like 15 seconds left in the third quarter, it was something like 75 yards to nothing or something. There were no penalties. Now, as I did my mailbag, I'll say you have to understand there were penalties called. There were two of them for 15 yards and a holding call for 10 yards. So two flags for 25 yards that were called by the officials that Tennessee did not accept because they were on third down. So Tennessee didn't need them, and they got a big play out of it. So the discrepancy would have been less so if those penalties were accepted. That's what was glaring to people. In terms of individual calls, I mean, here's the thing: Tennessee can't complain to the SEC office about a discrepancy in number of calls, because it's possible that's true, right, John? I mean, it's possible that one team commits a lot of penalties and the other team commits very few penalties. So you can't really complain to the SEC office about a discrepancy in the number of calls. You can complain, and Tennessee does every Sunday after a game. Schools can submit questionable calls to the SEC office to review and look at, and not much gets done about it, but sometimes they get an explanation of a call or an acknowledgement that a call was missed or something like that. We don't hear the back and forth of that, but it does happen. Individual calls in the Tennessee game, there were a number of times I thought Arkansas could have been called for holding, offensive holding, and it was not called. It happens every game. It seemed to be more egregious in that game. The false start on, I think it was, see, it was on the right side, Wendell Moy and maybe Jesse Perry too. But when Arkansas jumped first, should have been offsides. It's called false start. Um, I know Tennessee fans are yelling into the speakers right now of two or three other calls they can think of, but pass interference, Braylon Staley got hit early before the ball got there. You have some of those every game. The officiating, we don't give report cards for officials. Maybe we should. I'm sure that would do great on online. I would give the refs about a D. D is in dog in that game. It wasn't an F. I've seen worse. But nothing's gonna change there. Like John, I know you get these pleas from fans, and I do too. But do something. We can't do anything. It's not gonna happen. All right, let me jump to another hot topic from this Arkansas game. Conservative Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel is too conservative. Many fans are saying he's just letting these games get too close. He's got a 17-point lead midway through the fourth quarter, and he just, as fans say, he lets his foot off the gas. Nearly let Arkansas win the game because he just curled up in a ball in a fetal position and had no fight left in him. That's what some Tennessee fans have said to me in numerous ways. John, you want to take this one first? I mean, did you think he was too conservative in the Arkansas game? I think it's reasonable to complain about what happened at the end of the Georgia game, but the Arkansas game, was Josh Heupel too conservative?
I thought his play calling was in the Georgia game and Mississippi State game. It was more significant. To me, the Arkansas game was different. I didn't think it was that paramount in that game. However, I can see how fans would, and also let's keep in mind this is something that's really permeated college football now more so than ever. So many people are betting on games.
Yeah.
So when Tennessee is up by 17 points, it's covered the point spread. Now, I think if if Arkansas hadn't scored and Tennessee covers this point spread, he's okay. But when Arkansas comes back and scores, and then if you're losing your bet and Tennessee needs to score again. Well, Josh Heupel's not worrying about scoring again because hopefully he's not betting on the game. So he's just trying to do the strategic thing. He looks at the clock, he checks that, he thinks he can run this thing out. And it did get close at the end. So I think that's a factor in why people are so upset about conservative calling. A couple of other things I believe enter into it. One, to go back to when Josh Heupel first came here in 2021. Tennessee was coming off a dreadful season, the Jeremy Pruitt era, 3-7. Wasn't just a bad team, no entertainment value. Brutal offense, just an awful team to watch. Josh Heupel comes in here in 21, wins 7 games, but he didn't just win them. He won them with Steve Spurrier-like flair, scoring. And when he lost, he lost 6 games. He lost that Music City Bowl to Purdue of all teams. I almost said, no, it couldn't have been Purdue, could it?
Because they're terrible. Right?
It was, but it was, he scored in the 40s. So when your team is scoring and moving the ball, it's exciting. And you kind of always feel like, well, we got a chance. So that to me, his first team and his second too. Second also, 2022, when he led the country in scoring, those were exciting teams. In 2022 team, very successful, almost made the playoff. Then you look at it, Josh Heupel back then had nothing to lose.
Right.
He kind of could do no wrong because you're comparing him to a bar that was set so terribly low by his predecessor. So he comes in, wins some games, throws the ball all over the place, and people are excited. And now he's doubled his salary. He's got a winning program. He just went to the playoff, playing more conservatively, but winning 10 games and making last year's playoff. He's got something to lose now, and he's trying not to lose. I just think I've seen that happen with coaches. As they get more successful, they think about what they've got to lose. As their program rises, they think about those things.
Yeah, I think Josh Heupel maybe has done that some. Here's the thing, but I think it's actually a positive. If you think back at when he was people paid any attention at all, he was a offensive coordinator at Missouri in 2016 and 2017. Trying to think, that wasn't Pinkel, it's Barry Odom. He was under Barry Odom there.
Mhm.
And those were mediocre to bad teams, but they put up a bunch of numbers because Josh Heupel was calling the offense. He was not the head coach. The offensive numbers were put on his resume, not the record. And if you look back at those teams, there were a number of times. I mean, I think Blake Topmeyer, colleague, covered those teams. Josh Heupel did not care back then of managing the clock because he wasn't the head coach. He has to think about that now, and so I kind of see some of his decisions in the way that he handled the end of the Arkansas game. I actually see that as a maturity as a head coach. I mean, it's not a sexy decision to sit on a lead in that way and to try to milk the clock down, but there is a maturity, I think, to head coaches that do that, especially in this era where everybody's looking at maneuvering themselves for in the playoff picture and all that. I will argue that in this era, style points don't matter quite as much as they once did. Tennessee needs to get to 10-2 to get in the playoff. 9-3, they're out. I think that's the dividing line. And so wins are wins. I'm with all the fans that say he mismanaged the clock. He didn't push hard enough in the Georgia game. But I think you do have to judge these games a little differently. You have to judge them for what they are. There was a point in that game. Now, yeah, when you're up 17, I think fans say, okay, well, they're going to be up 24. They're going to score again. Gamblers, I mean, full disclosure, me and John were talking about this a day or two ago, and my naivete came out when I was saying all these things. Like, what does it matter? Win by 17, win by 10, win by 3, what is it really something to be angry about? And John, you told me, he said, gamblers, gamblers. I just had not, for whatever reason, that did not occur to me. Because I think what was the line, like, 14.5 or something?
No,
like
it was down to 12.5 when I saw it.
Okay, so when you're at 17-point lead,
You've got
guys,
it.
you're feeling pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets down to 10, you better go score again. And he didn't. He let it tick down. But let's just imagine we're in a world where gambling on the game does not matter, and let's just say if your top priority is to win the game, that is your top and only priority is to win the game and not to push the margin as big as it can be at the risk of possibly losing the game. In that scenario, Josh Heupel managed it not as well as he could, but well enough. The sequence that I got a lot of questions about specifically was it was under 5 minutes, like 4.5 minutes left. Tennessee was up 10, and they had the ball around midfield. They just crossed into midfield. I think they were at like the plus 44 or something like that. 3rd and 3. Under 5 minutes left, Tennessee runs the ball on 3rd and 3. They don't get it. They get nothing, I think. And then on 4th and 3, they took an intentional delay of game and they punted it. Now, the punt was too far, went into the end zone. It was a touchback. People wanted them to throw the ball on 3rd down, and then they wanted Heupel to go for it on 4th down. Let's go get more points. Let's push it. Guys, like his defense had played really well in the second half, and then ran out of gas before that. Gave up an 81-yard drive like in no time, and then right after this, they gave up an 80-yard drive in no time. His defense was done, and there is something to say for a head coach that can look at his team and say, we have it in this way, we don't have it in that way. And the longer that game went, Arkansas was going to score over and over and over, and I think he felt that. and he did the math and said we gotta get 4.5 minutes off the clock. They still need to score twice more. I'm gonna punt it. We're gonna try to hold them up as long as we can, and then what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? We win by 3, and that's what happened. Um, you know, with under 5 minutes left, I think they had to get 3 first downs and hold Arkansas from scoring in like under 2 minutes, and the game was going to be won. And that's what happened. It could have backfired maybe, but boy, the odds were in Tennessee's favor of just punt the ball, let the clock run, make Arkansas use its timeouts, and you're going to win the game by, albeit a small margin, but you're going to win the game. I had no issue with it. He was reading his own team. He was reading the room, and the room said your defense is spent, and you need to try to get out of here before you blow this game. The alternate would have been try to throw the ball. It probably works. It might work, but you throw a couple of incomplete passes, and then we're talking about a different thing. We're saying, why on earth was Josh Heupel throwing the ball up 10 points with 4.5 minutes left? Dummy, like you're stopping the clock. What are you doing? It would, so.
Well, you're trying to beat the spread, Adam. That's what you're doing.
That's right. Some of these coaches know the spread. Josh Heupel, I don't think really cares that much. He wants to put a lot of points on the board, but
well, I think you nailed it when you said read the room. I don't think every game's not alike. Every opponent is not alike. And you have to think, okay, can we hold them? Can we play conservatively enough in winning? Or are we going to have to score every chance we get? Go back to last year when the defense was better. And I think Josh Heupel played very conservatively. And at times I applauded him for that. He trusted his defense. His offense was shaky. This season, quite the opposite. Defense is shaky. Let's look ahead. Same topic, but looking ahead. If against Alabama, Ty Simpson might be the hottest quarterback in the country. Terrific passer, mobile, reads the defense, processes information really quickly, gets the ball to the right people, and gets rid of the ball fast and accurately. Okay, I go into that game thinking I can't ever let off the accelerator because they could score so fast. I need to score as much as I can, as often as I can. So to me, that's what I'm thinking going in. Now, the game could, as the game unfolded, perhaps it would be, you might change the narrative, but going in, that's what I would be thinking. I don't think of this as a game where you can be conservative. Now, if you can run the ball and you can kill clock and you keep it away from Ty Simpson, okay, that could work. But these are all the things I think when you talk about it, it's not all or none. It just depends. It just depends on the game itself and the opponent as to how you manage it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where I think I can say we certainly maybe separate ourselves a little bit from some fans that make this observation, because I think the fear with some Tennessee fans, is that this is how Josh Heupel is. This is his state now, that his status is conservative late in games, and I just don't think that's the case. I think it's more so now than it ever was before. You mentioned 2021. I think there's more good in that than bad. There is some bad, but I think there's more good in it than bad. And yeah, Alabama going in, I would say you're right. You need to put up a lot of points, and you need to keep pushing it, be aggressive. But if you get in a game where Alabama's offense has run out of gas after playing, this is their 4th straight top 25 game. If they run out of gas, they don't have it. They're settling for field goals, not touchdowns. Tennessee's also settling for field goals and not touchdowns. And this is a 20-17 game midway through the 4th quarter. Well, then you try to just protect the lead, and you try to get points when you can, and you try to milk the clock and get out of Tuscaloosa with a win. But yeah, if you're playing a game up in the 30s, then you can't just sit on a lead. So it depends. It depends. That brings us to our last topic of the Arkansas, looking backward, the Arkansas game of things that'll be relevant in the Alabama game. And that is Tennessee's defense. Why can't Tennessee's defense just play well. Stop the run, especially like last season. Well, John, let me get your take first. What do you think is if there's something wrong with Tennessee's defense? It leads the country in sacks, leads the country in forced fumbles, top 5 or 6 in TFLs. It has all those like impact, flashy plays, but it gives up a lot of points and a lot of yards, and people are frustrated by that, which I can understand. That part of it that's wrong with Tennessee's defense. What is that, John? And are you concerned?
Well, yeah, and I can see where fans would be concerned. The secondary is clearly vulnerable,
Yeah,
particularly on the back end. And let's face it, Tennessee lost its two best defensive backs, probably. Ricky Gibson, I think it's safe to say he's out for the year now. I don't know if they've
yeah.
ever said that, but I don't see him playing this year. And then, of course, Jamad McCoy, preseason All American. I don't think he's going to play now either. It's getting kind of late in the day for that. Maybe he will, but he's trying to come back from an horrific injury. And we saw last Saturday a great example of the danger in playing somebody too soon when Oklahoma foolishly started John Mateer at quarterback against Texas. That was a bad move.
Hmm.
So I just think forget those. So that's a big part of the problem. Fortunately, Tennessee has added Colton Hood, who is a really good cornerback through the portal. The other factor, Tennessee's defensive front, it's got talent. There's no doubt about that. And Arian Carter and linebackers playing at a really high level. But last year, there was even more depth. There was talent, and Tennessee was going 12 deep on that defensive front. But I think another really big factor in is go back and look at when you look at the opponents. Arkansas has two good running backs. Michael Washington, the transfer, is a really good running back. Braylon Russell, you saw him run over Boo Carter, just bury him in the turf. Those guys are good running backs. That game wasn't an aberration for them. I've been watching them all year. Really good running game. Mississippi State, two really good running backs. They're going to run the ball on a lot of teams. And of course, Georgia's 4 deep at running back, and they've got some talent there too. Even Syracuse had a good running back. So part of that has to do with the competition I think Tennessee's played so far. Now, looking at the Alabama game, this is a game I don't know about Jameer Miller's status, but Alabama's running game, it's got two versions. One with Jameer Miller, which is pretty solid, and one without him, which is a weak link in the offense. And if he can't play, this is a running game that Tennessee should be able to thwart. And I don't know if it can, but it should be able to. So maybe we'll learn more after this week. But yeah, and also I think there's a comparison factor because last year's good defense was just good overall.
Yeah, the running back, Alabama running back, Jam Miller is he had a concussion last week in the Missouri game. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. You're probably listening to this Wednesday or later. The injury report, the SEC availability report, comes out Wednesday night, and then it's updated each day. I suspect Miller will not be cleared in the first few versions of that report, but then we'll see at the end of the week because a concussion, you're out at least a week. So maybe he's a game time decision, but certainly the early reports I think will not have him completely full go yet. So we'll see. But yeah, whether or not he plays, that makes a big difference. If he doesn't play, Tennessee could have one of its better games stopping the run. Here's the thing I'll say. About the run defense specifically compared to last year. Last season, Tennessee was really good against the run with a lot of veterans, fifth-year seniors, sixth-year seniors. A, a lot of that is being assignment sound to borrow a coaching cliche. It's assignment sound, where you're supposed to be, your fits, as they like to say, like basically what gap you have where you're supposed to be.
Gap responsibility.
That's right.
Gap integrity.
Gap integrity. That's right. Gap integrity sounds like you're an honest gap filler or something. Yeah, these phrases are so weird. Um, but older players are more disciplined about doing that. They don't get over exuberant. They don't over pursue. Tennessee has some younger players on the defensive line. They had to because last year's team was like a bunch of 25-year-olds. The younger players, even some of the older players, are less experienced than the guys they had last year. So you're going to get some missed assignments. I think this is also something. I think this is an instance that reminds us that coaches and teams don't solve problems permanently. Like Tennessee had a mediocre defense early in the Josh Heupel era. Then it became a very good defense, a very, very good defense last year, and particularly a very good run defense. And now people look at this season and say, well, what? You were a good run defense last year. So it was over. It was solved. The problem was solved. We solved the puzzle. You figured out how to have a good run defense. Why is it's not a good run defense in perpetuity? Because personnel is different, teams are different, opponents are different. It's not necessarily a restart, but Tim Banks can't say, guys, I know there's some different guys here, but just play like last year. Remember how I told you guys to play lockdown run defense? Just do that again. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way on offense either. Like it's a different year. You have to figure out what you're good at and lean into that and try to shore up where you're poor. What Tennessee is good at on defense, it is really good at. And you can see a lot of the raw athleticism and talent that that Tennessee has, particularly up front. Jordan Ross was a 5-star. He's just a sophomore now. He was arguably the number one edge rusher in the country when he was coming out. You can kind of see that now. Like he's the next guy in line as their edge rusher. It was Byron Young, and then it was James Pierce, and then now it's Joshua Josephs, and Jordan Ross is coming. Caleb Herring may be in there too, but Jordan Ross is coming. I think he's the next guy. But you can have guys get, just get out of position a little more when it's a younger group. Maybe this defense gets a little better. I don't know, John. You brought up the most important point is that Jermod McCoy's out, Ricky Gibson's out, and there's not really a solution to that. You just have to play through it. Colton Hood has been really good, but Ty Redmond is your second corner, and he's going to be up until if and when Jermod McCoy comes back and is healthy enough to be effective. And I don't know when that's going to happen, if that is going to happen. Pass defense, those corners also, they need some help from the safeties. I think the safety play has not been anywhere close to where it needs to be. I think they filled some gaps a little bit last year with Will Brooks. Will Brooks was not the most athletic safety, and which is why he was a walk on. He didn't have the measurables necessarily, but he knew exactly where to be in position. So again, assignment sound. They may get a little better on defense. That they may not, but I think that's what this is. And any fan, I feel sorry for you because I know you got used to what you saw last year on defense, but any fans that think this defense is going to turn into last year's defense, I have bad news for you. That's just not going to happen. They're going to get some sacks. They're going to get some wow highlight plays, but I just don't see this defense holding teams consistently under 20 points like that one did last year. And last season's defense was historically good. In terms of scoring defense, that was the best that Tennessee had been since the national title year. That's just not. That may happen next year. I just don't see it happening this year. Fortunately, this year, different than last year, you have an offense that can put up a lot of points and compensate for some of those issues. So speaking of that, let's jump ahead. So Alabama week, Alabama game. I kind of consider this pod episode, at least this portion, as a vibe check. Just the vibe check. What's the vibes around Tennessee? What are the vibes around Alabama? And John, I mean, a few weeks ago, Alabama coming out of that loss to Florida State, you thought the vibes were probably going to be quite different by the time this game got here. And boy, they're not. Alabama looks great. If you were saying what's the handful of teams that could win a national title if you just had to guess right now. I would say Ohio State. I would say Indiana. I would say Georgia, possibly. I'm missing somebody obvious. Oh, Miami. I would put Alabama at this point in there. They beat a ranked Georgia, a ranked Missouri, and a ranked Vandy. If they were to win this game, that will be the talk that they just beat 4 straight top 25 teams. The vibes for Alabama are pretty good right now. The vibes for Tennessee, I think, are possibly a little shaky. Record's good. I'm not sure that the vibes are great. It didn't make any difference on Saturday on game day. But, John, are you getting the same sense as I am on both sides of that?
Yeah, and I understand what's going on with Alabama. A really impressive string of wins, particularly the way it's come back off the floor after an awful performance against Florida State. Fans were ready to get show Kalen DeBoer the door.
Hmm.
It's changed a bit now. However, when I look at this Alabama team and I think about it won 10 consecutive games against Tennessee, has won 10 consecutive at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, when you look back at those Alabama teams, those teams were loaded with talent. I mean, they brought in, they'd bring in a third string running back that Tennessee couldn't tackle in the fourth quarter.
Hmm.
They had 2 future NFL quarterbacks, or maybe 3 on their roster. That's not happening now for anybody in this era with NIL, transfer portal. So even though Alabama has registered 3 consecutive impressive wins, I don't look at this team as Alabama of old, like it's on a, oh yeah, it's a, yeah, it could, I guess it could win a national title because we look at, there's more parity everywhere. I just see this team as too flawed to win a championship. Ryan Williams, I'm not sure what's going on with him. The star wide receiver last year as a freshman who I don't think he caught a ball last week against Missouri. The running game we talked about, it's J.M. Miller and nobody else. The offensive line was supposed to be the number 1 offensive line in the country. It's nowhere near that. Really got exposed by Florida State. And even you look at the wins, I mean, those were narrow wins. Vanderbilt frittered that game away in the fourth quarter. It wasn't just like Alabama took charge and won by 16 points and it tacked on a touchdown right at the end, which really wasn't relevant to how the game went. So I don't think Tennessee, this is not the challenge of old Tennessee is facing at Bryant-Denny Stadium. To me, yeah, the vibe of Alabama fans, I'm sure, is, hey, we got it going again. Here we come. And the vibe with Tennessee fans is, yeah, we could do it, but golly, we're shaky on defense. So there's maybe more uncertainty with Tennessee right now. I go back to that Georgia-Tennessee game when Tennessee came out and got those first 2 drives and is up on Georgia a couple of touchdowns, and the offense is just so in sync, just so in rhythm. I mean, Alabama, I've seen it do kind of the same thing, but I don't see this as a impregnable defense that Alabama has. It's better than last year probably, but I just think this game pretty much is the marquee game of what kind of season this is in the SEC. A lot of pretty good teams, strong in the middle, strong depth of talent throughout the league, and maybe kick out Kentucky, and you think 1 through 15, you could get a competitive game with just about anybody. And so I think that's what we're looking at. I guess I don't know if it's a fan vibe. I guess that's the vibe I get from this game, not just Alabama or Tennessee. It's just kind of I'm surprised Alabama's favored by as much as it is, in fact.
Yeah, you're making me catch myself a little bit when I use the line, which we've heard all week, especially nationally, which is the line that I use, that Alabama has won 3 straight games over top 25 opponents. The win over Georgia, I mean, they've mostly owned Georgia, but it's a really good win to go into Athens and win in
Sure.
that way.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, they won by 16 over Vanderbilt, but you mentioned that was a one-score game for a lot of that. Won by a field goal over Missouri. It almost feels like we're criticizing or penalizing Tennessee for winning close games against what we think are mediocre opponents, Mississippi State and Arkansas. But yet we praise Alabama. I'm saying we generally
Uh-huh.
for winning what mostly was a close game over Vanderbilt and win by a field goal over Missouri. Win by a field goal over Missouri. When Tennessee wins by a field goal over Arkansas, what's the difference in Arkansas and Missouri? Like one of them was a top 15 team, and the other one was not ranked. But put Missouri and Arkansas on the field, which they'll play later this year, and what do you have? You have a toss-up game.
Well,
So
look at it from this perspective too. Arkansas played Ole Miss right down to the wire and fumbled away the game at the
yeah,
end, and Ole Miss is unbeaten. Uh,
yeah,
so again, we're talking about here we have an unbeaten team, and then we have a team that hasn't won in the SEC, and there's just not a terrible difference. So, and I think even if Mississippi State and Missouri played on a neutral field, I don't think I don't know that Missouri would be a double-digit favorite.
yeah. Now I do think looking at the two teams right now where they're at, Tennessee and Alabama, I mean, I think the last line I saw was 8.5. I think, I think that's a reasonable line. I think Tennessee should be about a one score underdog. They haven't won Tuscaloosa since '03. I think you mentioned before Alabama was a better team most of those years, so it wasn't a shock. It's been even since Josh Heupel got to Tennessee. The home team has held serve. Tennessee's won 2 at home. Alabama's won 2 at its home. And so Alabama's home again. You would think Alabama should be the favorite. They are playing, I think, better, we can say. Well, better is subjective. They're playing with more confidence. It seems like whatever mojo Alabama lost in the Florida State game, they've got it back in spades now. Um, Ty Simpson is playing extremely efficiently. He is red hot. 16 touchdowns, 1 pick. If you have a quarterback that makes good decisions, completes passes on third down, does not throw interceptions, you've really got something. That's the type of performance like Carson Beck had a couple years ago against Tennessee, where you just thought this guy's just going to complete every third down pass. He's not going to make big mistakes. That's of course the Georgia game, not the Alabama game, but that's what Ty Simpson looks like to me right now. Just makes all the right decisions, is good in the red zone. If Alabama does not have a consistent run game, and that goes back to the Miller injury, that could change things. There's a bevy of good receivers. Ryan Williams is underproduced, I would say. Now his production actually is about on par with what it was last year at this time. But you're supposed to be better your second year. This is supposed to be when he takes off and has a 1,500-yard season, and not he's going to have like an 800-yard season, which is what he had last year. I say that he could blow up in this game because Jermod McCoy is not defending him. But he's like their number 3 receiver right now, and there's 2 NFL guys in front of him. So Alabama has the wideouts. There's offensive line maybe is not elite, but it's really good. The defense is good. Its pass defense is really good. So Joey Aguilar and Chris Brazzell and those guys are going to have their hands full. But yeah, the vibes around Tennessee, I would say, are just a little shaky because of how that last game ended. You don't have confidence in the defense right now, at least to get third down stops. I think that's pretty critical. You don't have your best player out there in Jermod McCoy, so you always think that you're going to be susceptible to the pass again, especially on third down. I don't like that matchup at all. Ty Simpson and those receivers against Tennessee's secondary. I do like Tennessee's pass rush against Alabama's pass protection, and maybe that's the equalizer or the difference. I think Tennessee's going to need to start well offensively, put some points on the board early, and put the pressure on Alabama to try to keep pace. And that is hard to do as a visitor, to put points up early and make the home team keep pace. Usually it goes the other way around. But I think that's the way. If Tennessee's going to win it, I think they got to get the score up and make this a little bit of a track meet. And I don't know if they can do that on the road in Tuscaloosa, but maybe they can. I think about a one score spread in this game is pretty fair, though. It's 8.5 or 8 or whatever. I think that's probably about where it needs to be. I mean, John, what's your confidence level that Tennessee can win in Tuscaloosa for the first time in 22 years? I'm not asking for a score prediction or anything, but is this close to a coin flip or what?
I guess I go percentage wise. I'd say I'd give Tennessee about, I think it'll be a close game. I'd give it but probably 40-60. And not quite 50-50, but about 40-60, because I don't think this is a great Alabama team. I just think we got two pretty good SEC teams going at it. And I probably would have picked Tennessee to win the game and break the streak if Ty Simpson hadn't turned out to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Right.
I mean, look at Ty Simpson going into this season. He was the big question mark about Alabama. And now we're listing all these deficiencies Alabama has. Well, they don't run the ball that well. They don't have great depth at running back. Also, offensive line hadn't played up to expectations. Ryan Williams kind of disappeared. And the defense has shown vulnerability at times too. But who's saving it every time? The quarterback. The guy that, well, I don't know how good this guy will be. He's been really good. And it's almost like I was glancing at Tennessee's schedule, all the teams on it. The quarterback I'd least like to face right now is Ty Simpson on that schedule. I mean, he looks like he was designed to be able to exploit Tennessee's weakness. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, a guy that knows where the ball is supposed to be and can recognize where you're vulnerable.
Sure.
Taylor Green last week for Arkansas, I think, could make a lot of plays, which he did, but it was more improvised. It wasn't necessarily him just finding holes. He found holes just running the ball, but it was more in survival mode. Ty Simpson, I think, is sit back there and sees where the hole and exploits it. And again, that's where I go back to the comparison of Carson Beck a couple years ago. I guess a couple years ago when he came into Neyland and you just thought this guy's never going to throw an incomplete pass on third down. So yeah, I mean, I think these are almost all toss-up games or close to that because in the transfer portal era, you mentioned there's just, if you lose a guy or a guy didn't pan out, there's not a can't miss guy behind him. It's just every team's going to have some vulnerabilities, but also every team is just going to have like a C level, B level at some position. And for Tennessee right now, it's probably in the secondary. But for Alabama, that could be at running back this week. Could be elsewhere. And so then it comes down to just about execution and which team handles things well. Joey Aguilar is going to, he's going to get a taste of another road game in the SEC. He had one dealing with the Cowbells in Mississippi State. Alabama will be different. It will be loud. It is a night game. I've always thought Alabama was a good atmosphere, not great atmosphere. It can be a great atmosphere, but it always seemed to be more like the fans are like, we're here if you need us, and we can be as loud as anybody.
That's a really good way to put it. There used to be, and this lingers, even though Alabama isn't what it was under Nick Saban. I always liked those buttons. People had those beat Bama buttons.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw an Alabama fan wearing a button that said beat everybody. And it kind of, to me, was signified how they viewed their program. We're up here and everybody else is down here. But you're right. That's a really good way you put it, because I think Alabama crowd is a really good big game crowd. You
Yes.
say, okay, this is a game we could lose. Right now, Alabama doesn't have a lot of margin for error. It's got a really tough schedule. It's already lost once, and this is a big game. Alabama's fans, this will be a great home field advantage, I think, Saturday. It won't be just pretty good. It'll be great.
Yeah, and just so Alabama fans understand, because I'm sure we have many listening. I don't want this to be clipped and put on a bulletin board reel or anything. It's almost a sign of respect for Alabama's program and how their crowd, I think, reacts to big games, but not every game to an absolute elite level. Like, okay, let me give you a comparison. LSU, especially at night, LSU is loud at night, no matter who they're playing. At least, I mean, you would know better than I would, but they're there to be loud. That's what they're there for. I think Neyland has certainly got that back in the Heupel era. Texas A&M has that. I mean, we could go down the list of all of them. South Carolina has that. South Carolina's winning. South Carolina's losing. They're there to be loud. That's what they're supposed to do. Alabama, I think, has won so much, and especially during the Saban era, I've always gotten the sense that they said we will be as loud as any crowd you've ever heard, but if we don't have to be, we may not be.
Well,
So if we're playing Mississippi State, we may not have to be. If we're playing Tennessee, we will, and they often do.
well, I think it was almost like with Alabama fans because of all its success and being in such an exalted position in college football. It was the program for quite a while under first Bear Bryant and now under Nick Saban. It's had two dynasties. So the fans look at it like almost like, well, we don't need to get too excited about this team because this team can't handle us and we're going to thrash it. And then it, as you said, okay, a big game. Georgia's coming in here, Tennessee's coming in here, a good Florida team's coming in here. Okay, now we got somebody that thinks they can beat us. We're going to show you. Alabama fans, I think LSU fans have a reputation to protect as
Okay,
being
yeah.
loud. And I think they play, it's like an ego thing. We're supposed to be loud and we're going to be loud no matter how much we have to drink to be loud. We'll do the job, we'll do the work. But I think with Alabama, it's like, you know, we don't storm the field when we beat
Right,
somebody.
right.
We're supposed to beat everybody. So yeah, I think I've been there for big games and I know how loud that crowd can be and how the atmosphere. And when that PA guy says first down Alabama, I mean
It can get up there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I can.
It's for those big games, and I mean this obviously is a big game for both teams. You mentioned the margin for error. Um, both teams have a small one right now if they want to get to the playoff. We think 10-2 is probably the mark that certainly Tennessee would get in with. 9-3, Tennessee would not get in the playoff. Now, whether or not Alabama would have to win 10 or if they could get in with 9, I think that's maybe a different discussion because of, like we said, some of the top 25 wins that Alabama already has. If those still look as good later in the year, what we don't know. Um, but John, this is a good opportunity for us to revise or review our preseason predictions now for the perspective at midseason because we're at the midpoint, 6 games in. In the preseason, I said I thought Tennessee would go 9-3. Now, after the Georgia game, I remember on this very pod, I said I was leaning more 10-2 because of what I saw in the Georgia game. Now at midseason, I'm going to just sit on my 9-3. I'm going to sit on my 9-3 because I think it's reasonable to think that Tennessee will lose a close one this weekend at Alabama. Tennessee can certainly win; would not shock me at all. But I think it's reasonable to say that Tennessee will lose at Alabama. And then so that gives them 2 losses, and I think maybe that if they lose to Alabama, they would maybe pick up a 3rd loss somewhere. And it's hard to pick a game because schedule's not really difficult down the stretch. Maybe Oklahoma at home, but I don't really see that one. I guess at Florida would still make sense, even though I don't think Billy Napier will be the coach then. That may be good for Florida in that matchup. Uh, so I'm gonna sit on 9-3 for now. But if Tennessee beats Alabama, I think I may revise that to 11-1. I think I will jump from 9-3 to 11-1 if Tennessee beats Alabama. Because if they beat Alabama, don't I don't see another loss. I think they would win in the swamp. I think they would win the rest of the games on their schedule. I think they would if they beat Alabama. I think I could see Tennessee in Atlanta possibly, and certainly in the playoff. John, where are you with your now midseason prediction of number of wins for Tennessee?
Well, I thought in preseason 9-3, quickly amended that when I watched it play. I thought 10-2 was possible. And I still would favor 10-2 right now. Yeah, it could lose to Alabama, certainly. It's an underdog, and it would have to win out. But when I look at these opponents down the stretch, I don't see where any of them have much margin for error. We just saw with Oklahoma without its quarterback, John Mateer, being 100%. I mean, you can't have a quarterback that takes on tacklers and just carries not just your passing game, but your running game as much as he does and assume he will escape injury free. He's already had one injury, missed a game, should have sat out the Texas game, let that hand heal, give him time. A bad mistake on Oklahoma's part to play him. So he comes in here against Tennessee. Oklahoma, without, he's the big running threat for Oklahoma. It doesn't have, you think of all of Oklahoma's really good running backs, it doesn't have a running back of that ilk now. So that to me, and playing in Neyland, I mean, I would favor Tennessee. Then you go to Gainesville. I think Florida will have 6 losses by the time it gets to Tennessee. And I just don't know how fired up it will be. I think it will have 6 losses, and I think it will have an interim coach. I think that's pretty much inevitable. Uh,
And some guys eyeing the transfer portal,
oh,
right?
definitely. You bet. They're thinking about their next deal. They're not going to be thinking about Tennessee. They're thinking about their next deal.
Yeah,
If that,
how much tampering is going to be involved in
oh,
around Thanksgiving if Billy Napier is not the coach and you have that pretty talented roster of Florida players?
you should have representatives staked out on campus,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
not just at Florida, but at wherever. We got a lot of coaches that are falling by the wayside here. Penn State's got a lot of talented players. Auburn, Hugh Freeze could be gone by the end of the year. They got some talented players. So yeah, it's that's a factor. And then Vanderbilt. Uh, I mean, Vanderbilt is a threat now. However, kind of like Oklahoma, it is so quarterback dependent. Diego Pavia, when he played against Tennessee last year, he was not, he'd been beaten down. He was playing, but he wasn't 100%. So that's why if I just could see Tennessee losing a close game to Alabama and then winning out. So I think that to me would be the most expected outcome. Not
Well,
saying it has to lose at Alabama, but I think that's the most likely scenario.
and so I think there's a double dose of good news for any Tennessee fans that want to end this episode with some optimism. You have a chance to win. We both think that you have a reasonable chance to win at Alabama. And number two, if you lose, you still have a reasonable chance to make the playoff. You just have to win out, but your schedule is not terribly difficult, and so maybe a win-win in there. We'll see, even if you lose. So I will be down in Tuscaloosa to see if Tennessee wins or loses. I'll actually be in Birmingham more than I'll be in Tuscaloosa, but I will be at. You can't get a hotel in Tuscaloosa.
Can't get a room there.
No, I stayed at a hotel in Tuscaloosa for the Mississippi State game. That's a little secret. You stay in Tuscaloosa when Alabama's out of town. You get good hotels for cheap because they
Well,
still got to
I'm
fill
trying.
them.
You know what? I think Alabama was the first place in the SEC where you figured out, I can't get a room. I can't stay overnight there.
Yep.
The others, Georgia, places like that came along later, similar sized town. I can't even remember the last time I stayed in Tuscaloosa for a football game.
Yeah, I mean, you just the price gouging. All these towns figured out they could just charge $800 for a for a for
two night minimum too.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. But no, I will be in the Birmingham area, which I would imagine a number of Tennessee fans will be. And so for the for that trip, follow our coverage of the Vols at KnoxNews.com. Share this podcast with your fellow UT fans. We'd also love for you to subscribe to the pod just to make sure you never miss an episode. And thanks for listening to this episode of the Volunteer State.